All right, everybody, it's time to do a little around the league action. We're gonna take a look and see how things went. Both with I made some picks. We'll see how that goes. I could just tell you what I got, but let's just go through it one at a time, and we'll go over. I did pretty well on the whole in my picks this week, so that's a good sign. Let's take a look at each game and talk a little bit about each team. Eagles crushed the Commanders. I did not see that game. Eagles made the Commanders' crappy defense look as bad as it has been all year. Let's just take a look at the stats real quick. Ed Mariota and Josh Johnson, two nobodies. I was surprised when the game was close when I first checked in, but they eventually pulled away. Saquon Barkley, great game for him. Nothing much to say on this one. Pretty good game for Hurts. 2 touchdowns. Nice. So, yeah, I didn't even call that game because it was over by the time I did the preview. But, Eagles are looking definitely better. 10-5. And a team that has so much talent that you can't really count them out entirely. So you do have to wonder whether or not, they'll round into form. They've lost a lot of games that are just kind of like, that game against the Cowboys. At that point, I thought the Cowboys were better than they ended up looking in the long run, so you kind of wonder what happened there. The game against the Chargers, which was kind of a shit show, what was going on in that game? The Eagles haven't looked like they've had it this year, and they finally look like they have it, but it's against the Commanders, so can we really, is this the Eagles coming back into form or just playing a crappy opponent? We're about to find out. The Buffalo game will tell us a lot about how good the Eagles are. I'm stoked for this the Bills-Eagles game. So, I don't know. I don't want Buffalo to lose per se. It would give us an instant clinch, but I don't want to root against Buffalo this year. Honestly, if the Pats don't win, I'm hoping the Bills do, because I have a lot of friends who are Bills fans, and those poor people, they deserve a break. Of course, I would rather see the Pats win it all this year, but if the Bills won it all this year, it wouldn't kill me. They're the only other team that I wouldn't hate if they won, honestly. I mean, I also have my uncle who's a Rams fan, so I'm okay with them, but they've won enough, poor Bills fans, I feel for those guys. The best other fans in our division. But enough about that. I need to keep talking about the Bills. Really quick, want to go over. So yeah, Eagles may be resurgent, but we'll see what happens when they play the Bills. Rams, Seahawks. That was a hell of a game. Very fun to watch. I think Darnold finally shed the ghost a little bit. He managed to have a solid game from start to finish. A couple of picks, so I was kind of kept waiting for that third or fourth pick to happen. I think that the interceptions are still going to be an issue against the Rams because he doesn't seem to have a great beat on their defense. But Rams were without Davante Adams, a huge part of their offense. Only lost by a point. It was a gritty game for the Seahawks. It'll be interesting to see that Seahawks versus the 49ers game at the end of the year now looms pretty large. Now that it's the Seahawks and the 49ers, the funny thing, everyone kept talking about the Rams all year. Now everyone's saying it's the Seahawks and 49ers going for supremacy in the NFC. So I wonder what's going to happen. I think the 49ers have some other tough games coming up. I knew there was something I was forgetting to do here. I'm going to take a look at some of these teams. Let's take a quick look at the Seahawks schedule here, so I know. I'll get over. When we get to the 49er game, I'll look at their upcoming teams, and we'll see what we think. But Seattle's got a Carolina. Is that right? Yeah, Carolina next week. And that may not even be a tough game. That may not be an easy game. Carolina's going to be very motivated to win, having barely staying ahead of the Buccaneers in that division. And then they play San Francisco, and I hope that ends up being the Sunday night game. I could definitely see enjoying the San Francisco. The way the 49ers play today, I really look forward to a Seahawks 49ers matchup. So the Seahawks definitely don't have, in any way, shape, or form, an easy path to the 1 seed. It's only going to get harder for them from here on out. I mean, it doesn't get a lot harder than the Rams, but it'll be interesting to see how this pans out in the end. I really wonder who's going to. If the 49ers end up with the 1 seed, it'll be a shockingly great accomplishment from Kyle Shanahan, taking a team that lost two Pro Bowl defenders and making the most of it. I mean, him and Saleh together seem like a force, but I don't want to get onto that yet. All I know is I do hope the Rams and Seahawks meet again in the playoffs. That game was spectacular, fantastic, great one to watch. And of course, I do think the Rams are still as much of a contender as ever. Even if the Rams don't get the 1 seed, people have been saying their home field advantage is not huge. I guess because Rams LA fans are so fickle and not loyal at all. In particular, I used to live down there. I know people they make noise when the team is good, but it's like the diehards. My uncle is one of the diehard fans, and good for them. I'm happy there are some diehards living in LA, but for the most part, nobody talks much about the Rams' home field advantage, and I feel like the team is good enough that they could beat anybody on any given Sunday. So I think the Rams are definitely still as much of a force as they've ever been. Though I did hear about this bit with Puka Nacua apparently saying some things. I didn't hear what he said after the game, but it was something controversial. It sounded like he was more about Puka than he was about the Rams, which is, as we know from being spoiled by the Patriots, you don't want to hear that kind of talk. We don't hear that kind of talk in Foxborough these days. So maybe Puka Nacua potentially putting himself in front of the team a little bit. Sounds like he's hanging out with some questionable guys. Don't want this to turn into a Aaron Hernandez type of thing for Puka Nacua. That could be devastating. But there's a little bit of trouble in paradise in the Rams with Puka Nacua apparently thinking more of himself than the team and some of the things he said and making some comments he probably shouldn't have made. Rams are still dangerous regardless. They've got that talent, and he certainly knows how to be coached. A 225-yard game for Puka. It's amazing. This guy's 5th rounder. He's got 225 yards in a game. You can say what you want about him. Maybe he's being kind of a jerk, but the dude can play, and Stafford can get him the ball. All right. Spent too long on that one. Bears-Packers. I watched that game. I didn't do a preview on that one because it was already over, but real quickly, Packers should have won that game. When you have to win on a onside kick, that's not a way to live in the playoffs. Bears have had a great year, kind of like the Patriots. I personally think the Bears are like they're both good stories. I don't think the Bears are a story that's going to continue far into the playoffs. I'm not afraid of the Bears as a playoff team. I think that they could win a game, but they'll struggle to win more than a game, and it just it's the way they win feels fluky. Caleb Williams. Still, nowhere in. No, I'm sorry. People give him credit like he's anywhere in Drake May's league. Anybody would, if you redrafted those quarterbacks today, would go Drake May before Caleb Williams. I still personally would go Drake May and Jaden Daniels before Caleb Williams. I don't know why people are saying anyone's thinking about taking, trying to make the point that Caleb Williams is more talented than Drake May or even Jaden Daniels. He's obviously good. He's not going to be. There was some questions about him being a bust. He's not a classic definition of a bust. He's going to be a solid quarterback. He'll give your team a chance to win. I think he'll get better as time goes on. He's obviously has a good arm. He's very tough, but he's so far he's not really a pocket passer. That's something that Ben Johnson will have to develop more of because it was kind of like hero ball stuff last night. I don't know how sustainable that is. I think he will probably improve, but you certainly are happier with the rate at which Drake May is improving over Caleb Williams. That's not to say I'm not happy for Bears fans. I hope I've heard there's rumors Bears thinking about moving to Gary, Indiana. It would be really stupid if they kept calling themselves the Chicago Bears playing in Gary, Indiana. Much the way it's stupid that the Jets and the Giants call themselves New York when they're playing in New Jersey. So I hope the Bears stay put. It would be sad to see pro football leave Chicago, which is a great town. It deserves a football team, even if the Bears have been not the greatest team since 1985. And I love the super fans. So how could the super fans would be rolling over in their grave? Half of them, because half of them are dead now. Chris Farley's out. George Wentz gone. Pretty much just Mike Myers and Robert Smile still rolling around, but super fans, funny stuff. Yeah. Packers looking pretty rough right now. They're still holding on to the final playoff spot, and I mean, they were winning that game. Like I said, they should have won the game, but I don't know. I just don't see the Packers, with it. They had Micah Parsons. They had who was the receiver that went out in that game? I couldn't say his name the last time. Let's see. Packers receiver. It was Christian Watson. I don't know what I was calling him before. Says he doesn't have a long-term injury, huh? But it's torn ACL. It seems like a long-term injury. Let's just see real quick. I did want to see 2025 Green Bay Packers. Let's see how much of a difference maker Christian Watson actually was, because I didn't really. Let's see, receiving yards. I knew he was injured, but I didn't really take into account how big of a part of the offense he was. So they've got Dubes. Got Dubes here. Is he a running back? No, he's a wide receiver. That's it. This is receiving yards. So we're looking at 662 for Dube. Not bad for the old Dube. Smoke a Dube. Josh Jacobs 282. Christian Watson. All right, 498. I mean that's so he has the second most yards on the team. I mean, they got other talented guys there. Let's see. One of their other receivers is this Golden guy. Maybe Golden gets more of a chance. I mean, 341, not bad for a rookie. I know he was a name that a lot of Pats fans were talking about, wanting. Dontavian Wicks. I mean, these guys could be injured. I wouldn't even know it. Jaden Reed. It seems like they got options. This Christian Watson was... looks like a solid player in their system, but was I guess a regular target. But it doesn't look as if they are lacking for alternatives to throw the ball to. So I guess that maybe it's a little harsh to say that they're done just because of Christian Watson. It's really the Micah Parsons thing that makes it even more difficult to see them. I think their defense was very good, even without Micah Parsons. It still looks very, very good, but it's not the force that it was. Maybe Malik Williams. I've been watching Malik Williams play for a number of years, and every time I see him play, he looks great. I don't know what exactly happened to Jordan Love. That's the other thing I should look up. Let's see what happened to Jordan Love, because I don't know what he went out on, and if he's not, he's done for the year. Because I don't want to make any harsh judgments about the Packers without knowing what their situation is. He's in concussion protocol. Okay. So for the head injury, second quarter to the Bears. Oh, that was just in the second quarter, huh? So let's see. It sounds like he may or may not be able to go against the Ravens. The Ravens will be motivated to win. Oh man, sorry about that. I accidentally pressed the pause button when I was trying to open the window. It's going to be a freaking huge hassle now. I'm going to have to merge this with another video, but we move on. So basically, Jordan Love is in concussion protocol, saying that he might play next weekend against the Ravens. I don't think they absolutely need him because Malik Williams is such a good... am I saying Malik Williams? It's Malik Cunningham, isn't it? Let's see here. I've got to go back to this, and I got to go here. Yeah, Malik Willis. That's the dude. Malik Willis, that's right. If Malik Willis plays... although now apparently Malik Willis has a shoulder issue, but he seemed to play pretty well in that game against the Bears, so... I think that there's no question that the Packers are still good enough to make a playoffs, to make these playoffs, but I do not know if I can believe that they can win without Micah Parsons. So it's a pretty harsh thing to say. It's just one guy. It may not be the end of the world, but yeah, I still see the Packers being one of the weaker teams in the NFC at this point. And all it took was losing Micah Parsons, and they kind of lost lost a lot of mojo in my mind. All right, let me get out of here, get back here, we get back to where we were. So let's get rid of that. And sorry, folks, and just do this. Okay. And let's take a look at the Packers really quick. See what their schedule is. I think the Bears have an outside shot of getting first in the NFC also, but I would doubt that. Let's see, the Packers schedule looks like they've got Baltimore and Minnesota, so I think that's 2-0. I think they'll beat Baltimore. Baltimore, I think, it just doesn't have the mojo anymore. If Lamar Jackson doesn't play in this next game against the Packers, then they can kiss any chance of the playoffs goodbye, because it'll be over. All right. Let's continue on. We move on to Bills Browns. Now, there was a 10.5 point spread. Thought the Bills would cover. I really thought this would be a game that the Bills would just sort of utterly dominate, and they just don't look like a great team. You know, it's like the only team they looked good on against the road was the Patriots. And this is just a game that they should have crushed the Browns, and they just, you know, it was a game where, you know, they were in control for most of the game. They were up 20-10, you know, then 23-17, and you know, to 20. So they let the Browns chip away. Defense held them off. But certainly not the type of game I was expecting. I was expecting the Bills to cover the spread and really, you know, assert themselves after being able to take down the Pats in New England. So, makes you wonder. You know, definitely was expecting a better game out of the Bills. All right, so that was the first game that I actually picked. And in that game, I did pick I picked the Bills to cover, so I was wrong on that. That's an 0-1 for me. Chargers Cowboys. I thought this was going to be a close game. I thought the Cowboys might have still had some mojo. I really did not see, you know, the Chargers offense doing quite so well. I know that the Cowboys don't have much of a pass rush particularly and aren't a great defensive team, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised that the Chargers turned it on this way. But I really thought this was going to be a close game, and the Chargers totally bombed them. So, good for them. I'm kind of glad to see it. I don't hate the Chargers. Apparently their owner's kind of an asshole, but I always like their colors. I like those powder blue Chargers uniforms. Those are one of the classic uniforms. You know, they play in L.A. I used to live in L.A. You know, I don't hate the Chargers. That's all I'm saying. Harbaugh's a good coach. I think they would have been a very scary team if they hadn't had all those offensive line injuries. Struggling. Every time I try to make my camera come up, I stop filming. All right, let's just move right back along. So, yeah, Chargers, you know, they look like a solid team. Let's hope that they can beat the Broncos for us. It'd be nice. Cowboys are a joke at this point. I mean, they're not a total joke. They've got some talent. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. How is Jerry Jones going to handle the situation? Well, it'd be, you know, they gave up so much to get that Quinnen Williams. You know, they're going to have some work to do next year. Offense still looks good. I don't know. It seems like they kind of like took a step forward and 2 steps back by trading Parsons and ending up with Quinnen Williams. It seems like their defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. So, but I'm glad the Cowboys suck, and I hope they continue to suck into perpetuity because screw them. All right, let's see. Titans and the Chiefs. I really assumed that the Chiefs were still a pretty decent team, even without Patrick Mahomes. I can't believe the Titans just rolled up on them. 26-9. You know, let's see. Cam Ward, great game for him. He does look like a guy with real quarterback of the future talent for the Titans, I think. Remember from watching the game. But the results have not been there this year at all, and they've got a long way to go. So, you know, I don't really care about the Titans doing well particularly. Chiefs, you know, every time I want the Chiefs to win, they lose. Every time I want them to lose, they win. So, of course, the Chiefs get a better pick by losing, and they're pretty much irrelevant. I don't want to talk much more about them. Let's hope the Chiefs continue to stink. Every loss doesn't hurt. I never mind seeing the Chiefs losing, so I can live with that, even though it gives them a chance to work with better picks next year and come back stronger, which nobody should want. Then we got Bengals, Dolphins. I really thought the Bengals looked like they were ready to sit down and die. I guess I forgot that Tua was going to be held out, and whoever their backup is, what was it? Is it Brady Cook or something like that? Is that the guy? He's some schlub. Quinn Ewers. He actually, this Ewers guy, a pretty good game. You look at 20 for 30. Oh, I know. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Okay, so yeah, 66 passer rating. That's garbage. Burrow decides to take a vacation for the Ravens game for some reason, a mental vacation, and then he comes back and looks like a badass again. 25 for 32, 146 passer rating, 4 touchdowns. You know what happened in that? What happened in that Ravens game, Joe? You know, if you'd shown up to that Ravens game the same way you showed up for this game, you'd actually still be in the playoff hunt. Instead, you're irrelevant. Poor Joe Burrow. It's like they can't build a defense and an offense at the same time in Cincinnati. It seemed like they just sold out for excitement, have good wide receivers. Now they find themselves once again on the outside looking in. Dolphins, meanwhile, I really thought that they were going to be a team that was, you know, they were hot for a little bit there, but it was when they had Tua going. I think benching Tua isn't doing them any favors except for getting them a better draft pick. I don't think Tua is a great quarterback, but he's better than this Ewers guy. Maybe this Ewers guy is some kind of a, I don't know how they ended up with Ewers. He just doesn't look like he has it in this game, that's for sure, but probably too early to tell. Let's see. Let me take a look. Is this Quinn Ewers even a prospect? American football quarterback for Miami. He did play for the Buckeyes. Let's see, where was he drafted? 231st pick, 7th round of 2025. Okay, so this is like a flyer I took on this guy. Well, we'll see. I'm not overly impressed. You know, he's a very late round pick. Certainly, I don't think he's any kind of quarterback of the future, but you know, you never know. There's Brock Purdy's of the world, so I doubt. Hopefully, he's as bad as I think he is, so that we can roll over the Dolphins in the final week. Saints Jets. Like I said, Tyler. His name should be Shuff and not Shuck. Tyler Shuck. I have to say it. He shucked the corn, and freaking the corn was the Jets. He shucked them dry. It's like 6 points. Jets stink. Thank God we have to face the Dolphins and the Jets. They don't even feel like real teams that we have to beat coming down the wire. Saints are interesting. I've always kind of liked the Saints being from New Orleans. So, you know I've never been to New Orleans. Afraid of tornadoes. Don't want to set foot in that town. But I hear the Jazz Fest is a lot of fun. And lots of great food in New Orleans. I should go. My cousin keeps trying to talk me into it. I don't have the money. And I'm afraid of tornadoes. But I know people say they don't have tornadoes in New Orleans. My ass, they don't have tornadoes in New Orleans. They definitely have tornadoes all over Louisiana, and I ain't trusting it in there. Yeah, Saints looking like they might be a team that's on the build. I think Kellen Moore is the guy who came from the Eagles. There, it seems like he's found a guy he can work with in Shuck, and they still got Olave, who's very good. Still got some other talent on that team. I could see the Saints building in the future. So yeah, good for them. We'll see if we'll be saying who day again the next 3 or 4 years, or who dat, whatever it is they say. All right, Vikings Giants. I did call the Vikings in this one. I guess McCarthy, 9 for 14, 108 yards and an interception. That's nothing to get excited about. There was an awful lot of pressure on this kid to be good right off the bat, and he did have a team where Sam Darnold, who no one thinks is a world beater before this year anyway, led them to a lot of wins. I think it's pretty clear that J.J. McCarthy, if he is even going to be Sam Darnold's level of talent, it might take him a while to develop into that. This is his very first year. There's too much pressure on his head. And the Vikings are 7 and 8. And it's not looking as bad as it did earlier this year. It'll be interesting to see what they do next year. J.J. McCarthy, people still think has a lot of potential. I know there was talk in the draft that Bill Belichick had still been our leader. We would have ended up with him instead of Drake May. So, there was a moment where I kind of had some qualms about them moving on from Belichick near the end of his career, but now it's looking like it was the smartest possible thing. Because if we ended up with J.J. McCarthy, it would be a lot of complaints on the Pats forums, and Pats fans would not be taking it well. So, way to go, J.J. McCarthy. At least you were able to win a game, even though it was in a totally uninspiring fashion against a Giants team that just looks like it's totally given up. They just do not give a crap. I do wonder if the Giants looking like they're right in line for potential near the top pick. I don't know who has top pick at the moment, but the Giants are certainly seem like a contender. Some people talking about them even trading Dart and drafting that Mendoza kid. could see how that might not be a terrible idea. It would be interesting to see what the Giants do in this offseason. My buddy's a big Giants fan. I always never hated the Giants because New York team. I always liked the blue. I thought they were kind of, except for of course when they beat the Pats 2 times, and then that's when, if any hate for them existed, it comes from that. I still don't hate the Giants. I can't hate a team from New York, as I do think New York's a great city, but fuck them for beating our perfect streak because that was painful. All right. So yeah, that's it for them. Then we got I called the Vikings in that game, so there's another win for me. Just like I called the Saints against the Jets. I don't know if I mentioned that. Got that Bengals pick wrong though. Buccaneers Panthers. This was to me one of the most surprising outcomes. I do not know what's wrong with the Buccaneers this year. Baker Mayfield started so strong, and the narrative was that, oh, he's so great, but he doesn't have any receivers to throw to, because everyone's injured and his running back was injured, and you just thought when he got those weapons back, that he was going to be a force to be reckoned with again, and he's just faded, And I was not a huge Baker Mayfield fan to start, but even I had to admit that he looked with the Buccaneers like a quarterback who you could at least conceive of winning a Super Bowl with. But I don't know if it's his coaching, if it's just Todd Bowles, and I don't think Todd Bowles is doing so great. A lot of people are complaining about I know I was on their website around the time when the Patriots were playing them. I wanted to see what people said after we beat them. I was trying to give them a pep talk. A lot of people were complaining about their offensive coordinator. I don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do. They're kind of in a weird place. They have a lot of their stars are older guys. They do have Egbuka, who's had a great year, although it's faded a little bit. Don't have a great pass rush. They might need a overhaul on that team. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I never took the Panthers seriously this year. Maybe partially because the Patriots wiped the floor with them in that game early in the year, which is one of the most entertaining games of the year. Never a game. Got to watch 2 big punt returns in that game from Marcus Jones. Super exciting. Some great plays in that game, May running plays. So I didn't think the Panthers were any good. They looked terrible in that game. We had our backups in by the end of that one, and that was a rare blowout win for the Pats this year. But the Panthers somehow have turned things around and now are winning that division. If they get in, they'll easily be the worst team in the NFC, and anyone who faces them will be overjoyed to knock them out in the first round, I'm sure. I don't know. Bryce Young, the stats don't look bad. 21 for 32, 191, two touchdowns. I mean, he's put up worse stats before. This McMillan guy, a lot of people were calling for him to be a Patriot last year. I didn't think getting a wide receiver first was responsible when you had a terrible offensive line. You had to protect your potential franchise quarterback. So I think we made the right decision in passing on McMillan, but he is going to be the best wide receiver taken in that draft, and he looks like a future star. So, on some level, it would have been nice to have him, but thank God we have Will Campbell. I think that'll be more valuable in the long run. So yeah, Panthers. I think they've got a tough road. Let's see what's going on with the Panthers coming up here. Panthers have got. So they had the Seahawks. I knew that was tough, and then they got the Buccaneers. So really, the Bucs are still in it. Certainly, I think the Bucs by now, if they were going to do anything, they would have already done something. So it's hard to imagine. Maybe they can win that last game, and then the Panthers do have to play the Seahawks. So that division's still wide open. Definitely up for grabs, but we better see some better play from Baker Mayfield and the Bucs because they've done nothing in the last 3 or 4 weeks that suggests that their problems are just from the injuries that they had earlier in the year. With all their guys back, still failing miserably against teams that they should be beating. You got to be nervous if you're a Buccaneers fan. We got the Jaguars and the Broncos. This was, I thought, going to be one of the best games. And Jaguars went up early. They were up in there, 17-10, and then when the Broncos tied the game up at 17, I thought, here come the Broncos. This is what we've seen all year. Watch Bo Nix do it, and then he didn't do it. Bo Nix didn't do it at all. Trevor Lawrence suddenly looks like a world beater. No, Nick's pretty good game. 28 for 47, 352 yards, a touchdown. So it's not like it was Nick's fault. The defense just wasn't there for. And that's the Broncos' whole shtick. Is they're supposed to have the best defense, best pass rush. So what happened here? I guess Trevor Lawrence just beat it. 23 for 36, 279, 3 touchdowns, 115 rating. The Jaguars I did not take seriously as a team until this week. I think them beating the Broncos tells me that I've been not paying enough attention to the Jaguars. So they are definitely another team. Get another team, throw them into the large group of teams that have a chance to come out of the AFC this year. I think them adding law firm Jacoby Myers, that was a really wise move there. Sometimes that makes me think. I don't think it was going to make a lot of sense for the Pats to do it, but he obviously made the team a lot better. It seemed like a favorite target now for the Prince, as they call him, Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, Broncos opens the door for them to not finish first in the as the number one seed. I've got to hope that they lose to those Chargers, as I mentioned before. And I did call the Jaguars. I thought the Broncos would win. The Jaguars would cover with the points. Jaguars ended up winning outright, so I did pick the Jaguars. That's a win for me. But I did think the Broncos were going to win the game, to be completely honest, and that did not happen. Falcons versus Cardinals. Cardinals were making this a game early on. I thought maybe I was wrong. Originally I picked the Cardinals, and then I wavered. I think it was 3 points, 3.5, something like that. I started out in the Cardinals and then changed my mind. Said no, the Falcons. And I heard Drake London was playing. I took the Falcons. Falcons win. Good game for, let's see, well, Brissett. Looks like a walking. He's just the backup wherever he goes. It was so bizarre that Brissett had that game-winning completions record. It was just like, ooh, Brissett, right? He was the one who set the completions record. It was just surprising. Cousins made the. I thought Cousins was done, but he's made the Falcons look half decent near the end of the year. Still a disappointing year for them, and I'm sure they would rather that Penix worked out, or Penix, or however they say his phallic name. Falcons should be better than 6-9, but it's failed season for them. I think they gotta ask if Raheem Morris is the right guy at this point. Tough questions to be asked for next year. Cardinals, even tougher questions. What do you do with Kyler Murray? Are they gonna let him walk? Are they trading him? What's gonna happen there? They're gonna draft a new quarterback. 3-12. They shouldn't get a bad draft pick. Cardinals seem to be in a bit of a no man's land in terms of which way they're going. It's hard to gauge. I'm not gonna say much about them. Steelers beat the Lions. Sad year for the Lions. I was kind of, I've always loved the Lions uniforms, that beautiful silver and blue. Always so eye-catching. I used to love watching Barry Sanders every Thanksgiving. And I have a friend who's a big Lions fan. And they had a nice little streak there for the last few years. Looked like maybe they were going to be relevant with their coach. What's his name? Campbell, I think. Is that right? Let's see. Let me make sure I got this right. Lions head coach. I should be able to remember these things. Dan Campbell, that's right. I said his name right. So, yeah. I think the Lions are done at this point. They've had enough opportunities. The Steelers, I think, I don't know, 9-6, 8-7. I guess really, if the Steelers lose, let's take a look at this. I have to take a closer look. I don't love the Steelers. I think they're the worst team, the other worst team in the NFC besides Carolina. I don't know who's worst, Carolina or the Steelers. They're both in that same POS category. What am I talking about? The Steelers are AFC. So never mind. Let's pretend I didn't say that. I also said in this game that this was a black and blue game with the Steelers and the Lions, and of course the Steelers are not in the black and blue division, so that was totally inaccurate. Still working on things here. I don't know where that came from. I knew that they weren't in the black and blue division, but some part of my brain was just being stupid. They play the Browns. Steelers play the Browns and the Ravens. 2 games they should be able to win, depending on if Lamar Jackson feels any better and comes back. If he comes back in that Ravens game, I could see the Ravens beating them. But I think the Ravens have to win both their games, and the Ravens, meanwhile, I believe the Ravens are playing. What is this? Why would they do this to me? Wait a second. There we go. Ravens have Green Bay and Pittsburgh. So yeah, the Ravens are going to struggle to beat Green Bay. If the Ravens want to go to the playoffs, they're going to have to win next week, and then beat the Steelers. So not totally over for them, but it might as well be. Just Lamar Jackson is not the same guy. Steelers, Aaron Rodgers showing his veteran wiliness and doing just fine, but he's not a quarterback who's going to take you the distance anymore. So the Steelers are their usual 9-10 win team. That's 10 win. I guess they'll get 10 or maybe 11 win team that makes an early exit from the playoffs. They have some, and then there's the DK Metcalf nonsense with the fans. I don't know what was going on there. It was like didn't really punch him, but it didn't really not do something. It was like he's going to be fined for that and suspended, and it's kind of like, what the hell was he even doing? It's like it's not something that you could say was an egregious thing necessarily, but yeah, he deserves to be suspended and fined anyway. Just a dumb thing to do. Steelers are just pretenders as far as I'm concerned. I would not fear the Steelers again if Pats met them in the playoffs. So bring on the Steelers. I hope that there's some way that can happen, but I'm not sure. Doesn't seem that way because the Steelers are division winners or bust. So if we face the Steelers, it wouldn't be until later in the playoffs, and I get the feeling someone else is going to knock them off before we get to them. But the Lions, meanwhile, Dan Campbell is clearly a big part of their success recently, and it's a shame that they let him go and couldn't find someone better to fill his shoes. Dan Campbell's going to have to hire a much better offensive coordinator next year, and they're going to have to figure out a way to improve their defense if they want to get back to relevancy. At least they've had a nice little run here, but there's a nice little run without any serious. I never thought that they were a serious contender for Super Bowl. They never scared me on that level, even in these last few years with Dan Campbell, where they looked like a much better team. So they better rebuild a smart way here as they go forward, because it seems to me like they're fading out of relevance, and I'd hate to see that because the Lions were so bad for so long. It's been nice that they were, that they were sort of in things, and I hope they do bounce back. It's a proud franchise, long history. Texans barely beat the Raiders. I did say I didn't think that the Texans offense was all that impressive, but I did not think they were going to keep the Raiders this close. I don't know if Geno Smith just had a good game. We'll take a quick look. Stroud, 23 for 35, a touchdown, 187 yards, 88 passer rating. Nothing to get excited about. Geno Smith, 16 for 23, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Also nothing to get excited about. Somebody had 107 passer rating, which doesn't look so bad. Gene T finally looking like the guy that everyone thought was going to be the dynamic, exciting draft pick. 24 carries, 128 yards. Maybe this is the beginning of him actually being living up to his potential a little bit. Just sort of pedestrian numbers. The Nico Collins did have 59 yards, but the Texans just do not have a great offense. And as scary as their defense is, it feels like there's a chance the Patriots could beat them head to head. So, people talk about how scary the Texans are, and they are scary, but their offense is nowhere in the same league as our offense. And yeah. Let's see. What am I going to have to look at here? I wanted to see the Texans schedule. Real quick, as far as the Raiders, Pete Carroll's got his work cut out for him. The dude seems old. He's going to have to prove that he's still got it, and I don't think Geno Smith is the guy to get him there. It's going to have to be a lot of overhaul. My friend was saying the Raiders should go for Burrow. It could certainly be exciting for them. I think they should just build from scratch. Maybe if they get the first pick, they'll end up with Mendoza. I don't know. I don't know how the race for the first pick goes. I'm not going to look that up. But we got the Texans have to play the Chargers and the Colts. So the Colts are pretty much done at this point. And the Chargers will be a tough game. So that will be interesting to see Texans Chargers. I hope that Herbert doesn't get killed by the pass rush in that game because the Chargers do not have. We'd like the Chargers to have some chance of beating the Broncos in the last game and could get upended by having to face the Texans. So let's hope that that's not the case. But yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. Some part of me wants the Texans to win out, so we don't have to face them as the 7th seed. Another part of me, hopes that they don't beat up on the Chargers too bad. So we'll see. Finally, we got the Patriots. I called the Texans on that one. Or sorry, I put my money on the Raiders on that one with them getting points. So I won that game too. And Steelers, by the way, I did pick the Steelers in that game. I don't know why. It was just a hunch. And I think they were the underdog. So I won that one also. Pretty good week. It really finished out strongly for me. So Patriots Ravens, we win 28-24, just like I said. Patriots were getting points, which I didn't think was cool. And what do you know? It wasn't cool because Patriots should have been at least an gotten even odds to win that game. They gave them 3 points. Just no respect for the Patriots from the betting public this year. We'll see how that changes. I'm sure the Patriots will be favored in their next 2 games. Ravens are just going to have to, maybe they'll fire Harbaugh. It'd be interesting to see the Ravens without Harbaugh. It's like for the longest time he's been their coach. It's hard to imagine. I said that Harbaugh had won multiple championships. I guess he only won one. That one championship with Ray Lewis. So, the Ravens, they're going to need to figure something out. There hasn't been. I don't know if Lamar Jackson's the guy who's going to get them there. Honestly. Maybe you got to trade Lamar while they still can. So maybe Lamar could go to the Raiders. That'd be kind of fun. And let's see. Finally, 49ers and Colts. I watched that game tonight. Man, is Kyle Shanahan a genius. The dude turned Brock Purdy into a world beater again. I mean, he's throwing back to the world beater again. It's like my phrase of the day. I got to stop saying it. Purdy, 25-34, 295 yards, 5 touchdowns. Just a great game for him. McCaffrey, 117 yards. Kittle, 115 yards. I think Kittle had a bit of a I think it was an ankle or a hamstring or something today, so that's a little concerning for the 49ers. But let's see here. Let's look at the stats here for this game. 126.8 passer rating for Brock Purdy. Meanwhile, very honorable game from Phillip Rivers coming back, doing all he could. It wasn't Phillip Rivers' fault that the Colts lost. It was the Colts defense, which was just crap. And, Colts are in a situation now where they gave up top picks to get Sauce Gardner, who immediately got injured, and they immediately fell out of contention. And you got to think the Colts fans are pissed. They're in a bad way now. Gave up a lot to compete with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones half turned into a pumpkin, half got injured at the worst time. Kept trying to play on a broken fibula, or is it fibula or tibia? I don't remember what it was. There's a major leg in the bone. What was it? Broken tibia, and then he busted his Achilles, ruptured his Achilles. Kind of a disaster for the Colts. I don't really mind too much, They had their I'll still remember that year. I hated Peyton Manning. I hate Indianapolis. It's a cool uniform. I like the blue and the white, but yeah, they're not a team I ever have any sympathy for. The Midwest could go suck it, honestly. Being honest. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if Phillip Rivers plays. It was a great story, him coming back. I wonder if he'll play as they're not entirely mathematically out, but they're basically out. It'd be strange, I think, to some extent if Phillip Rivers keeps playing after this. But it was a great little run he's had. If he keeps playing, I'm sure he won't embarrass himself amazing that a guy, 44-year-old, can still go out there and not make a fool of himself. A guy who was coaching college, high school football. It would have been a great story if he could have made the Colts competitive. It's still a worthwhile story. It's just not the story that maybe some people were imagining it could be. Certainly, if the Colts defense had been better, then Rivers might have had a shot to make them relevant. Which is surprising to say. You wouldn't think a guy could come back and be a relevant quarterback after that much time off. But Philip Rivers is one of the great. He's at least on the verge of being a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had a lot of great years with the Chargers, and even though Brady bested him every time they met head to head, you couldn't deny that Rivers had at least some talent. So they're going to have to try again. I think Rivers will probably be done. There will be no more of the Philip Rivers experiment by next year. Maybe Daniel Jones comes back. They give him a chance to run it back. I would not be excited if I was relying on Daniel Jones to come back and make us relevant the next year, especially the way the defense played. I think the Colts are kind of in a little bit of a space where they didn't think they were going to compete. They surprise competed and were trying to kind of push themselves over the edge. And I wouldn't feel good about being a Colts fan for the next few years. But we'll see what happens. Maybe Daniel Jones bounces back and turns into something. Meanwhile, 49ers playing extremely well without their two best defensive linemen. Is that what they both are? Fred Warner and Bosa. I think Nick Bosa, both defensive linemen as far as I know. Just impressive what their coaching staff is doing for them, and that the 49ers even have a shot at the 1 seed is kind of shocking. So we'll see what happens, but I'm kind of happy for them. My dad's a 49er fan. He used to live in the Bay Area. It's cool that they're still making that an exciting. The NFC West managed to make that whole division exciting, almost from top to bottom, except for those horrible Cardinals. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens between the 49ers. 49ers have some tough games coming up here. It's going to be a battle at the end for that 1 seed in the NFC, and it will matter a lot. But only good games coming up. Looking forward to that. At the end of the day, I was 8-4 against the spread, so not too shabby. That's I've always had a pretty good track record when I play in pools versus my friends. I wouldn't say it's like an exemplary ability, but 8-4 is a good start. So I'm going to keep keeping track. I'll do another league preview. I'm going to keep the league previews separate from the Patriots pre-games, or the Patriots previews, I should say. So in the future, you're going to see separate league reviews just like this one. But that's my league review for today. Exciting stuff. And looking forward to another good week next week. Things are getting exciting as we get into the playoffs. And I've got to go tend to my doggy who wants to see me. So, yeah, looking forward to another great week of football.